Our application is coming along quickly. We've already added in the interaction. When you click the element, we're outputting the source. Now we can use that and update the source value of the pop-up window, and then we also need to just simply remove out the hide class from the show div, and then that's going to show that and initiate our overlay as well. So when I remove that out, if I refresh it, you're going to see that that is already in place. So we constructed that in one of the earlier lessons. So selecting our output element, and we created that area that we can output that content. Let's use our JavaScript and select that into an object. So right in the beginning, so that we have a full list of all of the elements that we've selected into as objects. This time we're using query selector because of course there's only one element, so we don't need to create a node list for that. And we're selecting that one element with the class of output. If you do by chance have more than one class of output, it's just going to select the first one when you use query selector. So that's the difference, and instead of creating the node list, it will automatically just select that first one. We also need to have our show area so that we can hide and show it. So I'm going to create another object called show, and then using the same format. So we're using query selector. Once again, we're going to select the element with a class of show. You could also use IDs and so on, and you could also be more specific as we did with pop. And then one last one that I want to select, and that's the close elements. So we've got close in a few places, and we need to create that ability to close those screens as well. So this one is a query selector all, because we could potentially have multiple classes of close, and we need to have the same functionality to all of those. So adding that in as a query selector all. So we're ready now to output that content. So using that output object that we just selected, we're going to use query selector inside of it so that we're selecting the image and then setting the attribute. And we could have just as well selected the image that's inside of the output. So we could have created an object for that. So this is just another way that we could use that in this case, we've got the output object, and then we're using query selector inside of the output object to select elements that are inside. So this is in case we want to utilize output for other things within our code, which in this case we're not going to be doing, but in case you do want to use that main container object, you want to select a particular element inside of it, you can use query selector as well inside. So we're selecting our source attribute. So just as we select and set attributes, and then we already saw last time that we've got the source being output within the this object. So now, and one other thing, and of course we need to be able to see it. So selecting our show and then class list, and we've got a few options for class list. We can check to see if it contains it, we can toggle it, we can add, and the one that we want is remove. We want to remove out a class, and the class that we're removing out is hide. You don't need to prefix it with the dot because of course this is already class list, so any values that are sitting in here are already going to be classes. So let's see how that works. So now when I click it, we see we've got our image and we can't close it yet. But that is working so far so good. And I know the images are a little bit squished, so you can of course adjust this as needed with CSS. And coming up in the next lesson, we need to add that last piece of functionality where we can actually close, or we can click off of within the overlay area to close our pop-up window. So that's still to come, and as you might guess, we saw that we can remove it, and we also saw that we can add it. So now it's just a matter of selecting the element with a class of close and then adding the ability. So we've got a query selector all. So we're going to have to loop through them all and add an event listener that's going to add the class of hide. You can go ahead and try that. And in the next lesson, I'll show you how to do that.